So, recently on stream, I played with Cubics for the first time. I had a lot of fun. In this video, I'll be going over the deck list and showing off some replays, because I feel like those replays really highlight what the deck looks like when it's doing really well, but also some issues with it that are kind of hard to overcome. So, let's start with the deck list. This is kind of what I landed on. So, Cubics, you want to run Cubic Seeds to put 3 Vijam in your deck at the start of the duel. Vijam isn't something that's actually in the game, it can only be added to the skill. But the restrictions that are tied to that are you can't run any non-cubic monsters, and you can only run up to, I think it's 6. Let me just confirm. Yes, you can't run any more than 6 non-cubic spells or and traps. So right now we're only running 4. We could run a couple more if we wanted to, but we're at 20 cards and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I'm running 3 Cubic Behemoth, 1 Doozer, 3 Dragny, 3 Dharma, 3 Karma, 3 Cubic Ascension, 1 Scolding, and 3 Ultimate Providence. So the goal is to summon this guy. You can summon it, you can special summon it by sending 3 cubic monsters on the field to the grave. This gains 3000 attack on summon. It can attack 3 times during the battle phase. Its floating effect, if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, is you can summon up to 3 cubic monsters from the graveyard back to the field and put itself back into your hand. So it's pretty good. I mean, I say it can put itself back into your hand. You can add 1 cubic card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Really, I just tend to cycle through and like keep my sort of deck healthy and my hand healthy, and just take him back from the graveyard back into your hand. That's kind of the play I make. So then we need to develop that field presence to make Buster Gundil achievable. When this is normal search summon, you can send 1 cubic card from your deck to your graveyard. The second effect I don't really use, but once during the player's turn, if a monster was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can make this card gain 200 attack for each monster with different name in your graveyard until the end of this turn. Not super relevant, doesn't really matter. The first effect is very, very good, however, because there's a lot of cards that you would want to send that have graveyard effects. This can be special summoned by sending 2 cubic monsters to graveyard, gains 600 attack on summon, deals 800 burn on summon. And if you successfully attack with this card, and it's not destroyed during that attack, you can send it to the graveyard and special summon up to 3 Vijam from your graveyard to the field. This, I will start with the banish effects. If you banish this, you can take a monster from your graveyard, put it in your hand. If you banish this, you can search for a cubic monster from your deck to your hand. Yeah. This on field effect I rarely ever use. I almost don't even want to mention it. But you can target a cubic monster, send Vijam from your deck to your graveyard, and get 800 attack per Vijam sent to that on-field monster. And this is on-field effect is much better. You can send a cubic card from your hand to your graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. So graveyard setup, you can have Dharma, send Karma, search for the Vijam, set the Vijam. You can kind of get things going that way. This also has a battle trap effect to special summon a Vijam, the cubic seed from your deck, and if you do, change the attack to it, perform damage calculation. Its banish effect is if your life points are at least 2,000 higher, so if there's a 2,000 life point difference in their favor, you can special summon a Vijam, the cubic seed from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon it up to 2 more. So if you're kind of on the ropes, you can banish this, special summon 2 more, clog up the field. You'll be pretty safe if you do manage to get this off. But there are some times where, because this needs that life point difference, you might not want to get some little chip damage off, because they can play around this card. If their life points are also lower down than yours, maybe you're like got in and attacked with this, so they're only at 24, and then it makes using this a little bit awkward. Solemn Scolding, I opted to throw in some negates, because one of the weaknesses of Busted Gundle is it is quite vulnerable to being banished. So are the Vijam. Banishing them can be problematic because we have a lot of graveyard recovery, but we don't have banish recovery, and this its floating effect is very weak to banishing because it's very weak to banishing, even though it's protected from like battle and destruction effects. So I kind of wanted to throw in negates because we want a diversity of cards. We want sort of an equal amount of monster spells and traps. So having something like Ultimate Providence to negate whatever we need to works out really well. And then Scolding because it's also sort of an Omni negate. And it can help us go down on life points to activate something like Cubic Ascension from the grave. So that's kind of where I'm at. You'll see that banishing is kind of a problem, and so that's why I was thinking about running, what is it, Burial? Yeah, if you are running into a lot of problematic banishing that's sort of shutting down your strategy, Burial from a different dimension is a good option, because if they banish, you know, one of your Vijam, you can get it back to banish two, because maybe you had one in the graveyard, one on the field, and you got Karma Cut. You can put them back in your graveyard and make them accessible again. I didn't run into too much, but it's an option. Now let's go into the replays. So this one is versing Junks. Let me see if I remember this coming back. So obviously we have the Vijam in hand. It's a good start. We have a negate. Solemn Scolding, you can't use it if there's another set Speller Trap in the field. So you only want to set one. I opted for this. Starlish. Oh, this was Galaxy Eyes. Okay, yeah. I opted to negate because if he gets his Galaxy Eyes on the field and he can use that Quick Play spell, that's a banish, and that's another one of the problematic things we're talking about. So I was able to stop that Xyz, but I am kind of on a clock here because he can easily just eventually get another one out and start banishing away. It's my turn. I draw. Let's speed up. But I do have a spell in hand with Ultimate Providence, so I am able to negate the piercing, which is another issue. It's not an issue if you have Dharma on the field, because that negates any damage that you would take from battles involving your Vijam. But because I didn't, it was a little bit scary, but I managed to negate it. Now we have this Scolding on the field. We managed to get this out. I opted to negate that because that would clear the field, and I get to get 3 attacks in. So yeah, it's kind of like knowing the matchup, knowing, do I have a banish? I need to save my negates for banish effects. Do I have access to it? If not, if you're pretty sure that they aren't going to have that, then try and negate the most problematic monster in the deck. Or card in the deck. We're versing... This is... what was this? This was a little while ago. I'm struggling to remember the matchups. But I know we had like a pretty diverse... Oh yeah, this was problematic. So I set Cubic Ascension, I set Vijam to Cubic Seed. He goes Red Eyes Fusion for Archfiend Black Skull Dragon. This card is a problem because of how it interacts with Vijam the Cubic Seed. I don't want to bore you too much. I'm just going to explain something real quick. So this card, if this card battles your opponent's card, and effects cannot be activated until the end of the damage step. If damage calculation performed involving this fusion summon card at the end of the battle phase, target one Red Eyes normal monster in your graveyard and inflict damage to the opponent equal to half its attack, then shuffle it in the deck. So basically, he has a way of shutting off my Vijam effect on attack, because I never talked about Vijam because it's not technically in the deck, it's something we add during the duel. Cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step of this card, battle an opponent's monster. You can place this card face up in the spell and trap zone. Place a cubic counter on them. If they have a cubic counter, they can't attack or activate their effects. And then from the spell and trap zone, I can special summon it during my next turn. So that's what that's about. However, even though this says if this card battles, your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated until the end of the damage step, and this says that its effect activates at the end of the damage step, it doesn't work in my favor. So I can never activate this card because his sort of shutting off monster effect is always going to start my Vijam the Cubic Seed. And I thought during this duel that it might have just been like turn player priority or something like that, but it's not. Because during my turn on with like Dharma on the field, I also tried attacking into this card to see if I could sort of have priority in that way, but it doesn't. So long story short, we don't have an out for this card. So your only option is stop it being summoned by like negating Red Eye's Fusion, or have Solemn Scalding on the field, stop it when it gets summoned. Yeah. Pretty much in this main deck, I didn't have an out for it. This duel goes on, I get burned, I eventually give up. I do lose that. I do lose that duel, but so that's something to consider. I don't think Red Eyes is super meta, but if they ever do get out that card, and maybe you're versing it every single duel, maybe you want to tech in a out for that card. But bearing in mind that techs have to be spells and traps, you can't run non-cubic monsters in your deck. So Lava Golem, not going to work. I did think about that, but can't happen. So this was a duel against Harpies that really made me want to run the Banish Recovery card. So on its face, it's not a terrible matchup, but it just really depends on how many Karma Cut they have. This matchup, they had, I think, like 2 Karma Cut set. It was brutal. You'll find out. I'm spoiling things, but I just want to talk about the matchup. I don't think it's terribly bad. I think that you can kind of take advantage of Harpy's Hunting Ground in a way to get these in the grave, and you don't mind them popping your back row because you have those graveyard effects. Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible matchup.
It's my turn. I set a monster. And my turn.
So I set both my back row in anticipation for them getting popped. He doesn't do anything either, goes back to me. I'm pretty sure those are 2 Karma cards. So we opened up with the nuts against this matchup, basically having both Karma cards. So I opt for Dooza. I swing. Yeah, I Dooza, send Karma, search for another Vijam, just swing in. He now has 3 back row set. I guess he's getting very unlucky on the draw, but he still has the perfect back row to deal with my deck. So I opt to just boost over and push for lethal damage potentially by using the Karma. He goes Book of Moon. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. Like, even though he's about to pop off with his combo, I have a full board of monsters. It's going to be quite difficult for Harpies to push through 3 monsters. Like, yeah, they have the bounce effect, but they can bounce maybe one of my Vijam, attack into another, and it's not going to be destroyed by battle. They can only do 1 bounce per turn. So I'm feeling okay, pretty secure. So he plays Hunting Ground. I think he targets this trap, gets that in the graveyard. which I don't mind at all. Elegant Egotist. He summons the Vanilla Harpy. It's a little bit strange. And he opts not to pop my Cubic Karma to give me a search, but he opts to pop his own field spell. Goes for Swallow's Nest, activates Oracle, goes into Cyber/Harpy, and attacks my Doozer. Doesn't do any bouncing that turn. I opt to play, or I draw into Dharma, play it. He activates his bouncing effect. It doesn't really matter because I'm just going to play that card immediately again. And Karma Cut. And that banishes the one in my graveyard as well. So at this point I'm crying. And now I'm really crying. So yeah. Karma Cut brutal. Because it banishes the one on the field. And any copies that you may have in your graveyard. Because, you know, I use the Karma effect on the field. I sent one to the grave. It was brutal. It was brutal. And Harpies is prevalent. So I don't feel bad about not having Detect for that Archfiend fusion. But I can definitely see a very good argument to put in that quick play spell. And honestly, I might try it. It is, obviously, if you're not in the right matchup, a dead card. I might do something like this. If you're not in the right matchup, it is kind of a dead card. But due to the prevalence of Karma Cut, it could be a good option. It could be a good option. Just as a Harpy tech, because Harpy's are tier 1, I'm pretty sure. And Karma Cut is a very popular card, even if you're not versing that deck. So that's what I'm going to go for. Obviously, they can really pop off. They are... You can obviously play to the deck out because you're sort of starting with more cards in your deck than your opponent. You can easily just stall that in the right matchup. I think it has a pretty decent Blue Eyes matchup, to be honest. Because, you know, they're only... You know, they can alternative, they can Vermilion Dragon Mech, but they're going to have a limited amount. I think you can sort of withstand the sort of big combos that Blue Eyes can do, and then you can kind of whittle them down. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It can definitely pop off. It's kind of weak to banishing. Maybe you want to account for that. Maybe you want to throw in some outs to monsters that are sort of higher than 3k. I guess we technically had an out maybe to that fusion by like getting this on the field, but still having some of our vision in the deck and then using Karma on it. Get to like 3800. Maybe. But maybe you want to put in an easier out for sort of higher than 3k monsters. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.